Okay, so I'll get started here. Hello, everybody. I'm Bob McCraney. I am with Texas Pride Realty Group, sponsored by, brokered by HomeSmart Stars. And I've got a group of people here today. There may be a couple others joining us. And we want to talk about the LGBTQ migration. And I'll expand that to BIPOC and other communities who are feeling the need because of their civil rights being threatened to possibly relocate. Now, we're not telling everybody they have to relocate, but we are going to talk about places that you may feel more comfortable. We're going to talk about places that have legal protections ensconced into their state or country's constitutions. And we'll talk about states that have discriminatory laws still on the books that have currently been overruled by Supreme Courts or actually not by legislature, by Supreme Courts that potentially could be reversed with the upcoming changes in our structure and our government. So let's jump in here and get started. Okay, these are the election results, I believe, as of this last election here, just showing you how the Senate has been divided. Now, there are some races, I think the Senate is pretty well settled, but the races that happened over the last, what was it, 10 days ago, 9 days ago, this is how the Senate laid out. We didn't have the complete House results when I did this survey. I believe we have now declared the House is fully going to be Republican, correct? I believe. And so these were
Believe
the
so.
districts. And you can see here, red versus blue and how we're doing. These were the governor results. So we had, no, I didn't realize this till I started studying. I thought all governors turned over at the same time. They don't. And sometimes governors turn off or cycle out in years other than presidential or national election years. National elections happen every 2 years for the Congress, for the House of Representatives, and every 4 years for the president, and every 6 years for senators. So like next year in 2025, Virginia will have their governor's race. So I learned something new. I did not know that. These states have what's called a trifecta. There's two words to remember. Trifecta is the first one. Trifecta is when the governor and the two houses of their legislature are owned by one party. And you can have blue trifectas and red trifectas. Okay. So in this case, all the reds have a Republican governor, Republican House, and a Republican Senate. Okay, because all the states pretty much have that structure of two houses of their legislature. So these are the red states and the blue states that are solidly in a trifecta of power related to the House, Senate, and governor. These states are what's called a triplex. This is where the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general are all the same party. Okay, you could have a balance of the legislature not be. But when you put those two maps beside each other, the ones that are in purple here are the ones that don't have either a trifecta or a triplex in place. Okay, so you have your solid blues and you have your purples in between. I'm not going to tell you which one you might be liking or not, but these are the states that don't have a lock on a government one way or the other. So these are states that still have sodomy laws on the books in the United States. There are Florida, Georgia, Kansas, Michigan, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas, excuse me. If we lose the Lawrence v. Texas decision, which is predicated on the 14th Amendment, these states already have discriminatory laws still on the books. They will not have to go back into session. They will automatically become law again, and LGBTQ people, especially gay people, will be illegal right away. These are states that have some form of non-discrimination in their state constitution. And these are obviously California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, and Washington. Two of the states, Utah and Wisconsin, have a variety, but not full protection, but they at least have something in their books. If we lose national protections, these states will have some form of protection in their constitutions and their laws to try to protect us. That would have to be litigated. I'm not an attorney, by the way. I'm not giving tax advice or anything. I'm just saying this is what you can find when you do searches to find out where these laws are that would protect us. These are states that have discriminatory laws or no protections for us, okay? Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, and Wyoming. These are states that if we lose national protections, immediately drop back down to not having any protection for LGBTQ people. And in a second, I'll go to these countries here. I want to introduce a couple of our panelists here that we have, and I want to let them talk for a second. Jamie Harnish is here. And Jamie, I would like for you to talk for a minute. Jamie is in Toronto, Canada, and he and I have known each other for some time here. Jamie, talk to us about maybe what it's like in Toronto. Give people a little flavor of the city, and how easy is it for Americans to come to Toronto and set up habitation?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Bob, for having me. I appreciate it greatly. Um, Toronto is a big city. I think it's bigger than a lot of people realize. We are might be the third largest city in North America. So, we're not too far behind, America's biggest cities. The vast majority of like the biggest kind of concentration of Canada's population is in Toronto. So there's not too many cities that come anywhere close to our population. Um, we've got America has probably like roughly 10 times the population as us. But the Toronto's population itself is, if our Canada's population is about 35, 36 million, something like that, and Toronto's population, depending on what you define where the city is and stuff like that, we're about 3, 4 million. Um, Toronto itself, I would say, is a very like liberal city from a like a social value standpoint and that kind of stuff. Um, we have a very large kind of neighborhood that's actually kind of I wouldn't say dedicated, but like the gay village, the village is what we call, it, and that's an area that is front and center for our Pride Parade, which is massive, kind of every year. So from a an LGBTQ plus kind of standpoint, I would say it's a very kind of friendly city for all kind of walks of life, if you will. Um, Typically speaking, our mayor of the city is quite often liberal. And even when the mayor is not liberal, I would say the social values, I think that's the right way to put it. The social values of the citizens of Toronto lean quite liberal. So even if the mayor happened to be kind of conservative in nature, I think how people kind of conduct themselves and I would say across the board, what Canadians kind of look for from a values perspective is for people's rights to be respected, regardless of identity and gender and all that kind of stuff. From an immigration standpoint, I am very far away from being any kind of like expert of immigration. My understanding is that it's not easy to immigrate to Canada. We use a points-based system, whereas my understanding is that the States does not. And so for people to come here, there is, it's not difficult to come here, but it can be difficult to obtain kind of legal status. I'll put this out there. A good friend of mine is an immigration lawyer, and I'm sure she would be happy to talk to anybody, for free for a consult, just to kind of give a rough idea as to like what the process is and all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, typically speaking, Canada is it's this weird balance between being friendly to immigration because we have an aging population, and not necessarily a growing population through birth rates and that kind of stuff. And so we as a country are trying to bring in lots of people, but at the same time, our federal government is trying to bring in people of skill, of people with a reasonable amount of wealth, those kinds of things, so that bringing in people to the country in large numbers that can also kind of contribute to the economy and stuff like that. So not easy to come into the country, but at the same time, Canada is also very welcoming of immigration. There have been some recent headlines that said that Canada is going to slow immigration down a little bit, but only because we've been really exploding our population, like bringing in kind of at least 500,000 new immigrants to the country every year. And most of them kind of flock to southern Ontario, which is the like southern part of our province, which is where most of our country's population is kind of uh, densely kind of living. And a great number of those people come to the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto Area. So, our housing has become very expensive, partly because of immigration for sure. So, the federal government is slowing it down a little bit, but like I said, overall, still quite welcoming to immigrants for those who qualify. That is. Did I touch base on all the things that you were hoping for me to? Oh, you're muted, Bob.
Thank you for that. Yeah, yeah, I caught myself being muted. Normally that's my role to tell other people that. Yeah, thank you for that. We have a lot of people. Our numbers have spiked significantly since the election last week, in inquiries and people asking. And I have had a lot of people ask about Mexico and Canada because they're directly adjacent to our borders.
Sure.
Canada, from my understanding, has a high litmus test for getting somebody a visa to stay. Now, visiting is obviously, tourism they love because that's capitalism. We can bring money in. But staying long term, every country has a different series of steps and hoops that you have to go through to get a visa and to
Yeah,
get the ability to stay. So thank you for covering some of that.
sure. Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, I've got people who have moved to Mexico. I have not done this process myself, but it's my understanding that Mexico is a lot easier process. Leslie, do you have anything have you done any research on Mexico that you would want to chat about?
So Mexico, honestly, is pretty easy to get into and pretty easy to kind of acclimate yourself. The major cities, honestly, are not more affordable as people would think. The example I would give would be going to Mexico City. If you're going to stay in the heart of Mexico City, you might as well be in stay in the heart of DC or New York or San Francisco or Chicago. With that said, the biggest concern most people I know, and I know lots of people who've gone to Mexico, is healthcare. And one of my friends who works at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City just came back to the United States because he had to have major dental work. He did not want to do it there. So healthcare is a concern. And, as a 53-year-old man who's been HIV positive for 25 years, that's one of the first things I'm looking at when I'm looking at other places to go is, what is the healthcare like? Beyond that, the visa is now buying property in Mexico. As a U.S. citizen, you will, if you want to buy property, you will not be able to get a loan in your name or property technically in your name as a resident as opposed to a citizen, especially when it comes to beachfront property. They only do 99-year leases. Um, you would create a company in Mexico. The company would technically be the property owner, and you would be the one residing in the property, or you could even do investment properties that way. It's a little bit more tricky to buy property there, but the one big thing you need to understand is that it's very difficult to get a loan for property in many countries if you're a U.S. citizen, not a citizen of that country. A lot of countries will not give you a loan. I know of only one, and that's Panama. They will let you get a loan to buy a property. Beyond that, people who are concerned about safety issues in Mexico, I say you're going to be concerned about safety issues anywhere you go. And it's there are beautiful areas in Mexico, but if you're going to Mexico and wanting to stay in a major city, it's not going to be cheap like a lot of people believe it is.
Okay, thanks for that. I know you've been researching that for a while, and obviously anything we say about, our opinions of these places, obviously double check those with immigration attorneys and immigration and tax attorneys so that, you validate what we're saying. What we're just talking about is our opinions and what we've gone through with our research. So, Kimber, would you like to touch on maybe some trans issues and how they would affect what's going on in the trans community? And, I can speak as a cis gay man. I'd love to talk. I'd love everybody to have a contribution to this conversation. And, chime in, please.
Well, howdy, everyone. I'm Kimber Fox. I'm with Texas Pride Realty Group. I am the business manager, and I'm happy to be here today. Good to see Leslie on this call. Just want to say, um, really, so I am a huge advocate for trans rights. It's very important in my life in Texas and in other deep red states. Texas specifically, since that's where I reside, they are threatening to stop all um, forms of medication or gender affirming healthcare to even adults. That is something that we are at risk of losing. There are people that have kids that need to leave to get their families to safer areas. I want to be very clear that while we are here advocating for or giving examples, information for what could be options for other people, we also advocate for people staying here. Not everyone has the resource to leave. Those that are transgender, I have found they do not have the same resources unless maybe they are older and they transition later in life, or maybe they have trans kids. Their situations are going to be different. So there's a lot impacting how the PGX, so the transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming community, are there's additional hurdles and things that they have to go through. Texas also right now has put a halt on all gender marker name change information. Um, so they're not processing that right now. They are also threatening to reverse that. So these are just some of the things that people are having to face in just not only Texas, but other areas such as Florida. Um, it's okay if people stay, it's okay if people go. We're here to help everyone. So that's really my message to just let people know is whether you stay or go, we're here for you.
Leslie.
Leslie.
So I would like to kind of reiterate, she's talking about some people can stay, some people stay, some people can't, some people want to stay, some people don't. As someone who's considered myself to be an activist for our community for over 30 years, I will say that not everybody is is a fighter. Not everybody is built to fight, and many people have a family to consider first. So no one's being judged on whether they want to go somewhere else or whether they're going to stay. It's whether you stay or go is a very personal decision. It has more to do with it's not just about fighting for your rights. It's about your family and your safety. So just to reiterate what Kimber, it's very important that we also keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I've got a couple of things I want to share, and then we'll end the call. If anybody on the chat has any questions, they can put them in the chat. Kimber's in charge of the chat right now to help us out with that. And I'm going to share my screen again here, if Zoom would let me. And can you see my screen? Okay, so this is a map that I came up with. This is, you can access this at lgbtqworldmap.com. Okay, so on the left-hand side here, you're going to see a series of clicks that you can do. These are the states that we covered earlier that have full LGBTQ non-discrimination. And if you click on that, you're going to see where I got the information. So it's not just Bob's opinion about this. This is where I did some internet searching and, tried to find as much as I can to get some data for us here. So these are the states that have LGBTQ protections. These are the two that had some. These were the states that had no protections. So I'm going to turn layers on and off as we go. Okay. And by the way, Alaska is included in that, so that we're not leaving Alaska out. These are the states that still have sodomy laws on the books. Okay. So you can use this map, by the way. This map is available to you at lgbtqworldmap.com. Okay. And again, if you click on it, it'll tell you where I got the information so that you see that. It really worries me that if we lose a Obergefell, which is gay marriage, and we lose Lawrence v. Texas, which is, the sodomy laws, that we can be illegal people again immediately. Okay. These were the countries that came up in a search that were best for immigration. Okay. And Canada, thank you, Jamie, for getting Canada on the map here, is one of them. you're going to see Iceland and a lot of the European countries, although there are some European countries that are not on this list, and we'll cover those here in a minute. Australia and New Zealand are on here, although Australia and New Zealand are, I understand, like Canada, hard to get into. And I think somebody in the chat just said that all Commonwealth countries use that point system, Commonwealth countries being former British protectorates or British possessions. Um, and they all go by the point system. So I've heard that immigration to the New Zealand and Australia area is very, very stringent. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's stringent. So you can use this map and zoom in on, let's say you're interested in Switzerland. I mean, go to the Alps, have fun. This is Malta. Malta is an island in the Caribbean, if you don't know. I'm sorry, in the Mediterranean, not the Caribbean. Boy, I just screwed that up. And so you can find out what it's like to be there. And there's a link to why this organization thinks they're LGBTQ friendly. Portugal needs to be a shining star on everybody's map because they rank high in almost every category for different visas, for being LGBTQ friendly, for being affordable, for being open, things like that. So if you get a chance to go to Portugal, please do put it on your list. Let's jump over now to what's called digital nomad visas. Digital nomad visas are visas for people who can work anywhere there's internet connectivity. These visas can be issued usually between 6 months to a year. They are often renewable 3 or 4 or 5 times. And as long as you go to their country and you rent a house and you spend money in their restaurants, they're not going to bill you for the taxes and they're not going to worry about you too much. You can just go there and work. Now, you obviously need to have a transportable job and you need to be able to sustain your income and show that you're able to get there. But these are places that have different digital visa opportunities for you to just arrive and go. Okay, so if that's something that you can do, and you and your family can just take a year and go to one of these places, that may be a good opportunity for you until you can settle out what you want. And some of the digital nomad visas do allow you to transition to residential visas later on. Once you're there and they see you're a nice person and you don't break their laws, sometimes they'll let you just go ahead and transition to a different program while you're still in country. Now, talk to your representatives on this if you do check this out. Some of the places require you to leave the country, apply for the second visa, and then come back in. So you may have to take like a month vacation somewhere else and then come back. Okay. The next program I want to talk to you about is what's called the golden visa. These are for the people who have the gold. These are for the people who have the money to buy into residency. Now, some of the residencies are not that expensive, like relatively. $100,000 sitting in the bank, not everybody has that. Not lots of people don't have that. But if you have $100,000, you can buy residency into Panama. You can buy into Costa Rica for 150,000 US dollars. Lots of, I shouldn't say every, lots of countries have these programs because they want to spur their economy. I know that the UK and Ireland, they have set very high limits. I think they're like a couple million British pounds or a couple million euros to get in and buy a golden visa into Ireland or England. So these may not be for everybody, but if you do have the wealth and you're looking to go somewhere, consider a golden visa. Okay. Some of them, like I said, are relatively small prices. Okay. Now, these are the countries that were anti-LGBTQ. These are countries that punish gay people either by years of imprisonment and there's 4 countries that punish by death. Okay. So before you travel, do some research and find out. Be sure that you know where you're going and be sure you're safe because it's not safe in the world for a lot of people. You'll notice that the United States came up on this list for this organization because they separated the states out. Individually, some states were not very strong for us, which we already know in our previous maps. But these are places that you need to really be aware of who you are and where you're going and is it safe, okay? Student visas are a great way to go travel somewhere. Okay. If you want to get your bachelor's, master's, doctorate, and you have the wherewithal to go get a student visa, that's usually an easy entrance point into a country. The UK, Ireland, Canada, Brazil, I mean, you can go to their universities. Now you're going to pay out of state, out of country tuition, which is a little higher, but you'll get a year to a year and a half visa to be in that country, earn a little money, get an education, find out if that place is for you, and have a respite for a while. Okay, who doesn't need more education? Everybody needs to learn something. So, and then the last one here is the retirement visas. Now, you can't usually, I should say, you usually can't earn active income on the retirement visas. You can have your retirement pay you a certain amount, and you can have passive income. So if you built up passive income through your stocks or through your investment properties, things like that, that's allowable. But these countries will allow you to come in and just live there as long as, like, this is Belize, as long as you have $2,000 a month retirement or passive income, you can stay in Belize and just retire there. So this is a great map for you to use so you can click around and see where you might want to be and make some plans for yourself. Because, you know, if you don't plan, you're just going to get what happens to you. If you do plan, you can try to get somewhere that may be better for you. So check this out. If you have any questions, email me. And you know, let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. We've got people like Jamie in Canada. I've got a gentleman in Colombia who was not apparently able to join us today. I've got people who help with Portugal. I've got people who help with the UK. And obviously we help across the United States through the LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance and refer to people there. One thing that we want to be sure of is as you're moving out of a territory that may be hostile to you and your family, be sure to find a realtor who supports you and your family, because there's no confidentiality built around some of the things that they're making illegal now. In Texas, if you have a trans child, Governor Abbott signed a bill that says it's illegal. And so you want to hire somebody who understands your family and can help you get to where you want to be. And you choose where it is, whether it's still in Texas or still in Florida or wherever, or where you want to go. So thank you. Kimber.
Is Posy D the
Yes.
individual? Well, Posy's
Yes.
here.
Okay, let's get Posy in the room. Posy is from Colombia. Let me in my screen share here if I can figure out how to do that. And promote to panelist. Posy, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Let me see if I can get the.
I don't know how much of that buildup you just heard there, but
I heard it. I heard it. Thank you so much. I appreciate
yeah. So
it.
Posy is in Colombia, I believe. And
Yeah,
yeah, tell us a little bit about your story, if you don't mind.
sure, sure. So, just 1 second. I'm going to see if we can't switch the camera.
While we wait for Posy to get his camera on, their camera on, I would like to just remind everyone so we do not have the raise hand feature. It may be active, but we are not using it. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Okay. I'm here to moderate everything.
And I just posted in the chat a link that shows you how all the passports are ranked. Let's say if you're going to either get dual citizenship or change your citizenship, how many countries that passport gets you into is very important as well. So keeping in mind when you're looking for those things, you know, we're looking for safety, we're looking for healthcare, we're looking for are they LGBTQ friendly or positive or for us, and you know what the affordability is. So all those things matter, but keep in mind your passport's going to matter as well.
Hey, so a little bit of my story. So I'm from New York. I've been living in Atlanta for about 20 years, um, selling real estate in Atlanta the entire time. And you know, life comes at you. You know, being in the business for that amount of time, you know, anybody who's been in business for that amount of time, you recognize the ups and downs. And I'm not specifically talking about the market. I'm just talking about life. And so my wife and I, we lost our son several years back, about 6 years back. And, you know, my life was not the same afterward. And so with that, I had to figure out a way to, in essence, bounce back or continue a lifestyle that was similar to the lifestyle we were living in the States without having to earn as much money as I had to earn. So here in Colombia, we're just outside of Medellin, Colombia, in a city called Envigado. It's a bit more family friendly than, say, like Medellin. Medellin is a little bit more like a party city, but absolutely, you know, it's great for families as well. But so, you know, here we found a just a space where we could, in the beginning, just take a little vacation, take a 3 month vacation, see if there was something that we could, really do as a family. Um, we prepared to stay here just in case the 3 months worked out. We got our house in Atlanta ready for Airbnb. There's lots of stuff from an earlier trip that we took in February of this year. And so um, between February and June, we put everything together, got everything up and running on Airbnb, and it took off, and it just worked out. And so we've been here for coming up on 6 months now. Um, we have a lease here for another 9 months. I'm sorry, yeah, for another 9 months. Two leases actually. So one that we live in, the other one we're Airbnb in. But yeah, just we needed. I needed as a provider for my family to figure out a way to uh, change the way things were going. I didn't see uh, a way for me to like flip a switch and just become the person that I was before 6 years ago. Because that's the way life pretty much became for me. It was like life before Cruz passed and life after Cruz passed. And so this was my solution. As temporary or long term as it will end up being, I'm not sure. But this is where we're at. It's been amazing. We got 3 young children, age 2, 4, and 8. And they're in an all Spanish speaking school. They have very, very little Spanish. The 2 younger ones have very little Spanish back at home. And now I won't say they're fluent, but they understand. It's just, it's an amazing experience. Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody that's at all the possible.
Mike. Mike.
Your mic, Bob.
Sorry about that. How long did it take for you to feel like you were actually living there? How long did it take for you to like walk outside and go, wow, yeah, this is me now? And your microphone too.
Yeah, so it took a little while. I mean, I'm a little bit different, right? So I come from a background where like I was in the military, I got used to moving around and things like that. Um, and so it wasn't a big deal for me to settle here and feel more at home, I think, than anybody else in my family. But as a whole, as a family, I say we started to really feel, we're starting to really feel more like home or like something like that after, like now, after about 5 months. Because it definitely has, and we've had conversations about this, Bob, it's definitely been a challenge. Every single day, it feels like it's been a challenge and a big challenge. Today is not an exception.
Yeah.
I'm sick. My 2-year-old has an ear infection, yada, yada, yada. But, I would much rather be in the position that we're in here than the position we were in back. back. So me, I felt like I was at home or something like home after just a couple, maybe 2, 3 months. Um,
Okay, great.
but trust me, it was extremely painful, even though I felt.
Yeah. No matter how well you plan something like this, whether it's a move across country or a move across town or a move across the world, things will come up that you're not expecting. So thank you. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at bobmccraney@gmail.com. You can reach out to us at Texas Pride Realty. You can go to fleeredstates.com and ask any questions there you want to, and use the map that we came up with, which is LGBTQworldmap.com. And I hope to hear from you all. And most of you know me on Facebook anyway. So take care. Have a great evening.